Good evening and welcome to the March 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals. I want to welcome everyone, and as you can probably see, we're spaced out a little bit tonight, enjoying our social distancing. So we are still holding our public meeting, but we are taking the precautions that we need to. So at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with prayer and pledge. Phil's going to lead us in prayer, and Scott in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the town of Smyrna. And we thank you and ask for your continual blessings, Father, for our leadership, our staff, our first responders, and our citizens. And we ask for your presence and your guidance during our proceedings today. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Phil. Scott, appreciate it. Next item on the agenda, number 3, is citizen comments, and I see none at this time.
That's correct.
Number 4 on our agenda will be approval of the minutes from the February 2020 meeting. Those are in your packet and appear to be in order. Any corrections or additions?
I move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meetings are approved. Meeting minutes are approved. Number 5 is our new business. We have several items tonight. We have 2 temporary use permits, 2 special exceptions, and a setback variance. We'll start with the temporary use permits. Mitch?
This first temporary use request is for a food truck, which is going to be placed at Lowe's, which is located at 410 Genie Lane. Food truck, this one's going to provide your typical fair style food options, which range from anywhere from funnel cakes, variety of popcorns, hot dogs, and more. Property is zoned C2 and about 15.83 acres in size. And the building on the property is currently being used as a home improvement store, and the property has access to Genie Lane and Old National Highway. Section 7.060B and C of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for a special exception review. In addition, section 7.061.13 detail specific requirements for these uses, and they are detailed below. Special conditions for temporary outdoor sales, food or retail merchandise. Approval in writing of the owner of the subject property where the proposed use is to be located. Approval has been provided by the owner of this site for the applicant to be set at the set dates. B, the site shall be improved to provide adequate parking as determined by the BZA and shall provide an on-site turnaround area so that backing on the street will not be necessary. Adequate parking already exists at this site. Staff does not believe any additional parking will be required. Traffic control measures may be required by the BZA, and staff does not believe this will be an issue either. Tents will be permitted provided they are erected in conformance with all applicable codes. Applicant has not advised us that they will be using any tents at this time, but if tents are used, they must place them on a paved surface, not any grass or paved area or gravel areas. Any site must be located so that all parts of the structures and inventory on the site are not more than 500 feet from an operable fire hydrant. Proposed vehicle location is located within 500 feet from an operable fire hydrant. The applicant has provided us with 28 of the max 28 days for this site in this year. Those dates are as follows: March 21st and 28th, April 4th, 11th, and 25th, May 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, June 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th, July 11th, 18th, and 25th, August 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th, September 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th, and December 12th and 19th. Adequate provisions shall be made for restroom facilities on site. This condition has been addressed by the applicant. The owner states customers are welcome to use the on-site restroom facilities. No permits shall be granted where the site to be utilized is in violation of any building, fire, electrical, and or other codes. No permit violations are present at this time. Adequate provisions shall be made for solid waste management. Applicant is aware of this requirement. Either A, they will provide their own trash cans, or B, the customers will be able to use trash cans provided on site by the business. BZA may require additional standards be met in order to assure compatibility of the proposed location with adjoining properties. Staff would not recommend any additional standards, and K is not applicable in this instance. Staff finds all the applicable provisions for temporary outdoor sales of food or retail merchandise is being met by the applicant. Applicant is proposing for the maximum 28 allowed days at Lowe's, which is located at 410 Genie Lane. With this, staff would recommend approval.
All right, thank you. We have pictures?
Yep, just a couple pictures of the site, just showing the adequate space available in the parking lot. It's an
Excellent.
overall site.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak for or against. If you'd like to speak, please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Ezra Gibson. The address is 2076 Caledonia Way, Smyrna, Tennessee.
Ezra, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Looks like pretty basic stuff, food truck at Lowe's. I'm gonna be honest, I go there quite a bit, and I always like it on Saturday when I see a hot dog vendor or somebody out there, so I grab something on my way out. I don't see any issues with the request that you put in, so I don't have any questions. Do you guys have any?
No, sir.
All right, what kind of food are we talking about?
Just in general, concession food, popcorn, hot dogs, funnel cakes, things like that. Fair food.
All right. If we don't have any questions, anything else you'd like to add?
I do. One of the things that I would like to possibly bring to you all's attention is the 28-day limit. Being a resident here of Smyrna, I really enjoy. We've been here 3 years. We really have enjoyed living here, and want to just become part of the community. And the 28-day limit, if there was some other special consideration that could possibly be made for property owners who live here but also want to serve the community, if there is some kind of way that can be extended so that we can do that, we would really love to be able to not have to leave the community in which we work, we worship, we educate our kids. We would love to be able to just be able to serve this community on a longer basis than 28 days.
What I can tell you is that the 28 days is set in the ordinance, which was set by the council. It wasn't set by this board, which was set by the town council. Of course, I'm a member of the town council, so I was there for the conversations. I can tell you that the reason that we put that in place is we had people who were abusing it. We had people that, we had some trailers that were sitting in the same place all the time, flat tires, sitting on blocks, not really a food truck, right? And based on the state law and what we can and can't regulate, the 28 days was something that we worked with our attorneys to come up with an appropriate way to regulate it. I will mention to the rest of the council that you've brought up a concern that maybe would like to see a longer period or a more amount of days in the same location, and we'll see how it goes from there. But it is a council decision, so even if I wanted to agree or did agree, I'm 1 vote out of 7. So I will bring it up to the council and just carry over your recommendations. I don't know if there's something, obviously we can change the days if we wanted to as a council, but I don't know if there's another way that we could try to regulate food trucks appropriately to keep, those that would abuse it from abusing it. So unfortunately, folks like you that do the right thing, that come in and fill out a permit and meet the requirements and make sure you're only there the required amount of time, are not the people we're trying to keep out. We enjoy your business. We enjoy the food trucks. We want you guys here. It's the folks that don't follow the rules and abuse it that we're trying to protect against. So I'll bring that up, and we'll have the conversation from there. Thank you for your comments, though.
Appreciate y'all hearing me.
Anything else?
There was one other location.
Yeah, that's the next item on our agenda. We'll handle them separately.
Okay.
So at this time, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for any discussion and a motion.
I move to approve the request for a temporary use permit.
All right, we have a motion to approve the request at 410 Genie Lane. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? The first item is approved. Mitch, the second item is the same food truck for 1218 Hazelwood Drive.
Yeah, just so you stay the same exact request. Second location they have requested. That's a temporary use permit to allow food truck at 1218 Hazelwood Drive, also known as the Mapco gas station. Once again, foods for sale includes typical fair food. Property is zoned C2 and is about 1.03 acres in size. Building on the property is currently being used as a gas station and convenience store, and the property has access to both Hazelwood Drive and Old Nashville Highway. Everything is in line with what just stated in the previous request as far as the owner's approval for the site on the selected dates, the restroom facilities, the trash receptacles. Different dates though, so the dates are as follows. March 20th and 27th, April 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th, May 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th, June 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th, July 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st, August 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th, September 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th, and October 2nd. Like I said, all the applicable provisions are being met for the site. The applicants are allocating to maximize all of their 28 days at this site, and with this, staff would recommend approval.
All right, thank you.
A couple more pictures out there today, just a picture of what the station looks like, and then overhead shot.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Mitch. This is a site that we're familiar with. We've had food trucks at this location in the past. I think the owner of the property does a pretty good job of working with them and providing the facilities. At this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing. If you'd like to speak for or against this request, please feel free. Yeah. And not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion.
I move to approve the request for a temporary use permit at 1218 Hazelwood Drive.
Motion to approve the Hazelwood Drive request. Second.
I'll second it.
And I have a second from Jay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, second request is approved as well. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is special exceptions. We have two. Start with Judith Andrews, 404 Williamsport Drive.
This is a special exception request to construct an accessory apartment at 404 Williamsport Drive. Property is zoned R3 and approximately 0.026 acres in size. The proposed accessory apartment is to be located in the basement of the principal structure. Applicant wishes to use the proposed apartment to occupy while taking care of family members. Proposed renovation would have an access out of the attached garage and would include one bedroom, one bathroom, a full kitchen, laundry room, and a sitting area. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are as follows. Conditional use permit shall be provided the board finds that it is so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Staff finds proposed use of a detached accessory apartment should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Will not adversely affect other property in the area in which located. Staff finds proposed use should not adversely affect other property in the area. Is within provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the ordinance. Section 5.051.3C lists accessory apartments as special exception within the R3 district. Conforms to all applicable provisions of the ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience and location planned. Staff finds the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review section 7.060C. Ingress and egress to the property. The site will access the existing driveway off of Williamsport Drive. Off-street parking. Staff finds the lot will provide sufficient space for parking in the existing driveway and attached garage. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection will proceed in the same manner as it is currently. Utilities. The location has all the necessary utilities on site to make this possible. 5 is not applicable in this case. Signs, if any, have proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic, safety, and economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in the district. Staff finds proposed accessory apartment should fit the compatibility with properties in the same district in reference to these above effects. Required yard and open space. This yard has the necessary open space for the accessory apartment. General compatibility with adjacent properties. Staff finds this use may not be compatible with adjacent properties as other lots in this area do not have an accessory apartment. Number 9 is not applicable in this case. Staff finds the R3 district allows for accessory apartments by special exception. The applicant plans on utilizing this extra living space for themselves and or other family members that have health issues. Applicant will also be required to pay all applicable fees associated with an accessory apartment, which include but are not limited to the Rutherford County Development Tax, Town of Smyrna impact fees, code inspection fees, and further. If approved, the staff would also recommend implementing a condition that the extra living space is not used for any rental purposes, and we would recommend approval with that.
All right, I have pictures.
Yep, this is the proposed site. The road is above, I'm standing on the road, really, so the driveway slopes down. This is just a lower shot. So standing up here, the second picture was taken from down here, just looking into the backyard. And then the overhead shot of it.
All right. Thank you, Mitch. This time, any discussion before we open the public hearing? Questions for Mitch? No? All right. We'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please come forward. State your name and address for our record, please.
I'm Judith Andrews, and this is the remodel home at 404 Williamsport Drive. Right now, I reside in Nashville, Tennessee, in the Cane Ridge area, and we're trying to remodel this so we can make this our forever home. I don't hear very well, and my hearing aid is not back, so I brought Jenny Kay with me. She's the one who's overseeing my project there,
Okay.
if you have any questions.
Okay.
But this is our forever home, so we're going to do most of our living downstairs in the downstairs quarters because there are stairs there, and we wanted to make sure everything was in a safe and way. And plus, I have my husband's brother is trying to come down from New York to be with us. He's 82, and for him to go up and down the steps to eat and all would be a big problem. So I just hope you all would consider what we're going through.
Yep.
The biggest issue is, I believe, is with the kitchen downstairs, having 2 kitchens in the house. That's really just so that they're not having to carry food, because Miss Judith is in her 70s, her and her husband, they're bringing their 86-year-old or 82-year-old brother-in-law in, and just having to walk up and down those stairs carrying food 3 to 4 times a day was our biggest concern in wanting to put another stove in downstairs.
Okay.
We're not wanting to rent it out. They're not wanting to have an apartment or anything like that. They're just wanting to be able to take care of family members.
Understand. Okay. You look great for your age. When she said that, I was like, really? So, I don't have any questions. I heard you say they're not wanting to rent it, so the staff had made a recommendation that there would potentially be a condition that it couldn't be used for rental. You guys are okay with that condition? No issues there?
No renting at all.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion. I don't have any questions. I think the space, she's not extending the outside perimeter, so setbacks, things like that aren't a factor. It sounds like it's basically unfinished square footage in the bottom already, so they're just finishing it out. Obviously they'll have to go through regular codes inspections, making sure that sewer connections and things like that are in place and can handle the load. But with the condition that it's not to be used for rental purposes, I don't have any concerns. How about you guys?
I don't. No, because there's no additional build out. Nothing. It's not going to change the footprint whatsoever. Everything. So I don't.
The only thing that we have discussed is maybe on the deck on the outside, putting in new boards, but we won't change the size of it at all.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. For those on the television didn't hear, they're saying that they're potentially going to redeck the deck outside, but that again doesn't change the footprint. Okay. All right. Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception for the accessory apartment, including the fact that there will be no future ability to rent the space.
Sufficient. All right. We have a motion to approve with the condition of no rental. Second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second by Scott. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. The next item on our agenda is another special exception, J.B. Hawkins, 5600 Glen Alden Drive.
This is a similar request to the last one we just had. It's a special exception to allow an accessory apartment at 5600 Glen Alden Drive. Property is zoned PRD and is approximately 0.24 acres in size with 2 front setbacks along Glen Alden and Paper Birch Drive. Proposed accessory apartment is to be located in the basement of the existing house. Once again, not expanding square footage any. The applicant wishes to use the proposed space to live in with his wife while other family members occupy the rest of the living space in the house. Applicant would like to include a stove, refrigerator, and sink for ease of living and limit number of trips up and down the stairs as they are both retired and want to simplify living conditions. Additionally, the applicant has noted to us that they have no intentions of creating a rental unit from this request. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are as follows. Is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Staff finds proposed use of an accessory apartment should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Will not adversely affect other property. Staff finds this proposed use should not negatively affect any of the surrounding property owners. Is within provisions of special exceptions set forth in this ordinance. This is part of the Woodmont PRD zoning, which at the time when they originally came through for zoning did not specify whether accessory apartments were allowed or not. So as is the case, it is neither allowed by special exception, neither disallowed. Conforms to all applicable provisions of the ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061. Staff finds the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review section 7.060C. Ingress and egress to the property. Access to the site will utilize the existing driveway off of Glen Alden Drive. Off-street parking. Staff finds the lot will provide sufficient space for parking in the existing driveway with the attached 2-car garage. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection will proceed in the same manner as it is currently. Utilities. This location has all the necessary utilities available at the site. 5 is not applicable in this case. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic, safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in the district. Staff finds that the proposed accessory apartment use should fit the compatibility with properties in the same district in reference to these above effects. Yard and open space. Staff finds this yard has the necessary yard and open space to allow for this accessory apartment. General compatibility with adjacent properties. Staff finds this use may not be compatible with adjacent properties due to the other properties in this area not having any accessory apartment. 9 is not applicable in this case as well. Staff finds that the Woodmont subdivision does not specifically state whether accessory apartments are allowed or not. The applicant proposes to use it for familial purposes and not expand the existing footprint. Applicant will also be required to pay the applicable fees associated with the accessory apartment, which include but not limited to Rutherford County Development Tax, Town of Smyrna impact fees, code inspection fees, and more. As a precaution for future occupants, staff would also recommend implementing the condition that this not be used as any rental purposes in the future. Staff would recommend approval with that.
We have any pictures?
Yep. This is the site standing at the corner of the lot. Back of it, this is downstairs area where it would be at. Just an overhead shot.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments for Mitch from the board?
When you say Woodmont doesn't have anything, is that their homeowners association thing or just in the application of the
When they
PRD
came through
itself?
for the PRD zoning, it wasn't specifically stated in that. Homeowner association is something completely different.
They don't. Do they? They don't have an HOA in Woodmont, do they?
Yes, they do.
They do.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So there's no restriction covenant restricting it.
We
as far
don't
as we
keep
can
up
tell.
with those
Okay.
because of nature of how many there are. And
Okay. So that would be on the applicant to work out with the HOA. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right, at this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please state your name and your address for our record, please.
Hello, my name is Jay Hawkins, and the address is 5600 Glen Alden Drive, Smyrna. And just a little background, growing up, my family, we had my grandmother living with us in our house while I was growing up. My wife had her grandmother in their house growing up. When my wife's parents got a little bit older, they sold their house and moved in with us. And because of monetary issues, my wife and I sold our house in Louisville, moved down here, bought a house that we thought the way it was set up would be fine for us and our son and his wife and their 2 children to get along okay and everything be fine. Currently, we have the master suite, and they occupy pretty much the rest of the house. My wife, I'll be 64 in a little over a month. My wife will be 61. She has some health issues, asthma, allergies, high blood pressure. We're both overweight, unfortunately. And we just want to have our own space that we can separate ourselves from the 2-year-old and the 8-year-old who bring home colds and everything else from school and daycare. And so we just want to move into the basement. There's an outside door that we can walk in that's level with the side street. And it's our plan just for her and I to live down there and have our own private, comfortable, clean space and reduce the noise level and all kinds of things like that.
Okay. So familial distancing instead of social distancing.
Hadn't thought about it that way, but yes.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. You heard our conversation about the HOA. I won't get into the details, but it'll be on your responsibility to check with your HOA, make sure that you're meeting any requirements they may have.
Okay.
There may not be any. It's just, we have no regulation. HOA supersedes the city ordinances.
Wow.
So if they have ordinances that are more restrictive, then they would apply. So.
I don't recall seeing anything in the HOA information packet that we have, other than if you're changing something on the exterior of the house.
That sounds reasonable, but you just be sure and check.
I will.
Whatever we approve here doesn't have anything to do with them, so.
All right.
Any questions for Mr. Hawkins?
Nope, I'm wrong, gonna be based around that conversation.
No? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and motion.
I'll move to approve the request for special exemption to allow an accessory apartment with the condition that the building not be used for rental purposes.
All right, we have a motion with a special condition there, although, we gotta have a second. Anybody second?
I'll second it.
All right, we now have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the special exception is approved. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, or last item on our agenda is a setback variance. Brandon Bradley and Cindy Hernandez, Wade Herod Road. Mitch?
This is a requested front setback variance of 38.5 feet for a fence in the front yard of the address of 143 Wade Herod Road. The western driveway fence is closer to the property line than the eastern driveway fence. The property is zoned R1 and is approximately 2.45 acres in size. Lot is narrow at the street and deep in size, which allows a fence to be placed in the front yard while many homes are built up to the front setback line and would not permit for a fence. Minimum yard requirements in R1 zone for a front setback is 35 feet. When the parcel was platted, the front setback was 40 feet and is still required to be 40 feet. A property zoned R1 with a front setback in the situation of 40 feet may submit for a certificate of correction to permit for a 35-foot front setback, being the ordinance requirement is now, minimum is now 35 feet. Fences may be built in the front yard so long as it does not encroach on the front setback line. Applicant stated the reason they installed the fence was to add safety for their well-being, as people have been seen driving up their driveway and through the yard. Applicant states they were not aware there was a setback regulation for fences until after it was installed. There are 16 sections of 8-foot fence that were installed along the western driveway and 10 sections along the eastern driveway. Property has dual access driveways onto Wade Herd Road, and a gate runs across each driveway after the respective sections of 8-foot fencing. Section 7.080D of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are detailed as follows. Particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict application of this ordinance were carried out. Staff finds the property has a rectangle shape, narrower on the front but deep. There is also a water feature that runs through the front of the property. Having a deep-shaped lot with a house setback further off the road would permit for a fence on this property in the front yard, while most homes are built up to the front setback line. Conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable to other property in the same district. Staff finds that this lot is relatively uniform in shape and ample in space in front yard space for the fence to be placed while still meeting the setback requirements. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Fences are allowed by right within the R1 zoning district but are to adhere to any front setbacks. Financial returns have not been identified as a reason for requesting this variance. Alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. Creation and size of the lot and the house were not completed by the applicant, however the fence was constructed by the applicant. The granting the variance request will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds the requested variance will provide the applicant with special privileges denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the R1 district due to a lack of hardship. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds this requested setback variance is not the minimum to make the reasonable use of the structure for its proposed use. A fence may still be installed on the property and still meet the front setback requirement and attain the applicant's goals of safety. Granting the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. And the proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion in the public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values within the area. Staff finds that having the fence in the front yard across the driveway may create a hazard for response vehicles in case of an emergency. 10 is not applicable in this case. Staff finds there is no particular hardship for this request. The fence can be pushed back to the minimum required 40-foot setback and still have ample front yard space to create a sense of safety for the applicant. Emergency response vehicles may need access to the lot or house if an emergency arose, whether for fire or utilities, for example, and the fence provides an obstruction to their response times or ability to perform a job safely and adequately. Applicant installed the fence without applying for a permit. This fence location would have been caught on the front end and noted by staff if they came and applied for a permit before installing it. And with that, staff would recommend denial due to the lack of hardship. A couple pictures of the site. This is a survey marker just showing where the property line is in accordance to where the fence is.
This is the right corner if you're facing the property?
Yes, this.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
This is another picture of that fence along the driveway. That gate is referencing regarding fire access is right here. It is open at this time. The other side, it is closed over here. But you can see the goal for this site was for the applicant to create a space where no one could drive through the yard, basically blocking it off on both sides of this water feature. And that's all the pictures I got for you.
Okay. This picture here shows that the yellow line is the 40-foot setback.
Approximately.
Yeah, okay. It looks like the fence sticks out roughly 10, 12 feet on each side.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the existing fence, so you got 16 8-foot pieces on this side, and you got 10 8-foot pieces on this side. And that's approximately where they're at currently.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mitch? No. All right, at this time, I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against. Please state your name and your address, please, for our record.
My name is Brandon Bradley. It's my wife, Cindy Hernandez, 143 Wade Harrod Road. We're new to Smyrna, and we love this town. But unfortunately, you don't know the details when you buy a home. And that being said, when we bought our home, we bought it from apparently drug dealers and drunks. We didn't find that out till day of move-in, sadly enough. We had a lady come up, and I wrote a big letter, and I don't know if y'all have read it, but I'll just go over the basics of it. We had a lady come up to me the day we were fixing the house for moving, talking about we're going to have drug addicts and drug dealers and cops coming and looking and just all over our property. Well, she wasn't wrong, because that same day, and the next day, and every day after that, I've had people drive in the middle of the night. I've had people driving around my property. Would you put the whole property map up, please? Driving around my entire property with their lights off, slowly.
I don't got a picture up top, but
Okay. This driveway connects. They'll drive all the way up slowly. They'll drive behind my shop, and they'll then drive out. This happens every night. Would you put the one where you can see the whole front yard? Yeah, right there. So the plan was just to put gates up, which is, I spent a lot of money on those gates. And we put the gates right here and right here. I can't go any closer up here for the simple fact that this whole front yard floods. So there's the gates wouldn't be able to be supported anymore. If I put them back here and run a fence, it's going to look tacky and it's going to look, the neighborhood look terrible. I don't know if you've drove through my neighborhood, but it's not the prettiest looking neighborhood. So we're just trying to, whatever we do to it, make it look nice in consideration, with our neighbors. So I put the gates up, and then we went away, and I had somebody stand at my house. And the gate right here, this one's not really of concern, but this one right here is the main concern, because when we went away, there was tire marks that went around, and then of course they're going back. I've had drug dealers come up to my back door, knocking on the book door. I've had the police trying to serve arrest warrants for individuals that used to associate with the people behind. I put for sale, I put sold signs up. I've done everything. I've been mean to these people, rude. I got the neighbors calling me a butthole because I'm just trying to establish a sense of security for my family. And after I found the tire marks going through my front yard, I had enough. The fence went up that weekend, and ever since then, I haven't had any issues. Nobody comes to my back door anymore. Nobody's walking. I've had people walking around my property. We've had, when we had the property, when we first bought the property, we had 3 ducks on the property. 2 of those ducks had their heads cut off. And they weren't chewed up. There was no feathers. Somebody cut the ducks' heads off. And my wife, I got a gun at the home, but that's not going to do. It's not going to do much if somebody wants in. They're going to do with the guy. I got an expensive security system in my house. I got surveillance all the way around my house. I got cameras, but only that offers so much security. And when my wife, is crying at night, you got to do something to keep your family safe. That fence. When we installed that fence originally, I called the codes department to find out, if it was all right. And the codes department said, as long as it doesn't block the view of you pulling out of your driveway or anybody else's. And so I kept that in mind when I did that. And that we wasn't aware of a setback line. We're new to being a property owner. We did have a house in a subdivision with HOA where you couldn't do anything in Antioch. But it boils down to this: if I can't keep my family safe, I'm not going to be able to keep that house. And we love that house, and we love Smyrna. And the biggest thing that I love about Smyrna is I see police everywhere. I've told the police and the sheriff's department that they can park in my driveways. As far as access to the property during emergencies or anything like that, there's going to be a automatic gate opener, which will give fire department all that automatic access. Basically, the gates are open most of the time just at night, and it just deters people. It deters people from driving up my driveway. I've had people park on the street with their lights off, just sitting in front of my house watching it. And I have a lot of expensive stuff at the house. People know that, unfortunately. But the biggest problem is the drug house down the street that used to associate with the house. and they keep coming back. So I just don't feel safe without that fence.
Gotcha. Okay. Just curious, you mentioned a phone call to codes. Do you know who you spoke to, or do you have any
I don't.
reference?
I
I'm just
truly
curious,
don't.
because obviously that's potentially misinformation. I would like to know who
It
might
was
have
a
told you
lady.
that.
It
Okay.
was a lady. I called. I had my neighbor come up saying she owned half my driveway. The property markers that you see, I just spent almost $1,000 having my entire property surveyed.
Right.
I mean, it's been a terrible experience, but I'm doing everything in my power and spending money that I'm able to affordably spend, to make sure I know my property, to make sure that I'm not invading on anybody, I'm not causing any damage to the neighborhood. We're doing everything our due diligence, but it's not feasible to put a fence down the center of the property. That would cut off our entire front yard, and not only that, it's going to be an eyesore for the property.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
what- I do want to add that for the first time, once we had those the gates with the fence installed, like I felt safe. Our family felt safe. My little nephews came and I feel safe inviting them over. They live in Bellevue because it was just so scary. Like I was taking a shower and the window goes to the one of the driveways, and I just seen cars pulling with their lights off, driving very slowly. And I mean, when you have kids in the house and yourself, you're gonna get freaked out. We moved from Antioch, which where we used to live, it's very near a very high crime zone, so we moved out of there because of that. And we know that Smyrna, every time we came here, we felt safe, and we fell in love with the property. I mean, we have ducks in the front yard. We got this beautiful, peaceful creek, but just that wasn't enough. We didn't feel secured, and we didn't know the history that happened with the people that used to live there. It was very troubled people, and we had even police come over just to make sure that it was true that they moved away. It was that severe. We didn't know this prior to buying this home. I mean, we just fell in love with the property in a town that is peaceful and secure, and we didn't know nothing about these problems. If that was the case, we probably wouldn't have moved, stay where we were, because at least we didn't have those problems where people drove in our property, drove in our space, and invaded our privacy.
Understand. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Bradley, Ms. Hernandez? No? All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
And one last thing I do
Yeah.
want to add, sir, is that we do plan to put openers, because I know that's a fire hazard. So we plan to buy those. We just spent a lot of money. We spent over $7,000 plus. How much we spent on that?
I spent about $10,000
On
the fence
everything
total.
altogether, which that was an unexpected expense.
Right.
But we're planning to buy the openers. That way, if in an emergency, then police and the fire department have access to our home all the time. But at nighttime, we need to keep it locked, at least until we get those openers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals at this time for discussion. Couple of questions, Mitch. What we're considering right now is really just the fence, or what's the gate conversation? You mentioned it, they've mentioned the openers.
It's just part of the gate is there, and it's just a concern for the fire department's standard. If something happens out there, they need to get access. It's going to delay their response time to get out there and perform
But
their job.
it's not specifically related to the setback.
No,
areas,
it's just
right?
part of it. It's just part of it is all.
Okay, and.
May I add something? I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, if you could come back to the microphone, give me just a second. The right gate that is on this right side, are both the gates behind the setback line?
Yeah.
Okay, so both gates are beyond the 40 feet, right?
Yeah,
The
right
red
here.
line is,
Yeah, that, I understand, but.
no.
Oh, yeah, they're behind
Okay.
easily.
So the
I just
gates
wanna make
weren't
sure.
ever in a violation of the setback. You were just notating in your full report that the gates could, because it's inside the criteria that they give to us, is that the gates could be an issue, but that's not the violation,
No,
it's the setback.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me close the Board of Zoning Appeals and reopen the public hearing.
And just to bring that up, I know it has nothing to do with me, but it kind of does too. There's apartment complexes. I used to manage apartment complexes, gated communities. There's gated communities that you have to have access to get into. But once again, they have the automatic openers that the fire department has access to.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I don't see the gates as an issue at this point.
No, that's where I was going, is unless they were specifically beyond the 40 feet, or too close to the road, I don't have any concerns with the gates at all. I think they need to adhere to whatever the fire department needs. I would encourage you to work with our local codes and fire department to make sure you have whatever openers, whatever access that they need. But assuming that you guys are gonna do that, which you say you are, I don't have any concerns with the gates across the driveway at all. I think, I may have done the same exact thing, right? I think really the question is and honestly, it's probably more on the right side of this driveway. The purpose of the fence, as I understand it, is to keep people from driving around those gates. On the left side, there's a water feature right by the gate, so they'd have to drive through the creek anyway. So if we assume on the left side it's not quite as big of an issue, the right side is really the biggest issue. And it looks like there's probably, guessing, 15 or 20 feet there between the creek and where the fence is, or where the 40-foot line is. Jeff, my question is, and maybe Mitch, what type of barricade or structure is allowed? Is there a height requirement? Could he put a
Boulder?
2-foot fence, a 3-foot fence, a 2-foot barricade to keep people from driving in there to go around the fence? Right now he's got, a 4-foot, 3.5-foot, whatever fence, which is the issue. But if that fence was only 2 feet high, or if it was a concrete curb, what is allowed in that setback for this particular purpose, right? For what he's trying to resolve, I'm just trying to figure out what's the options there.
I'll answer first and I'll let Mitch. To me, when you talk about driving through, that's the gate issue. The only has nothing to do with how tall it is or not. Town ordinance says that number one, have to meet the International Fire Code. Also have to have access to your home. He could meet that probably by having.
So I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm not talking about the gate. I'm talking about the fence itself. So the gates are behind the 40-foot, right? So I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about that little piece of fence
Beyond the yellow
stretching
line.
out above the 40. And the concern there is that right there, that picture, if he had to take, let's say, 2 sections of that fence down to stay behind the 40 feet, they could easily drive in his yard and go right around the gate. So the reason the fence comes all the way to the water is he's trying to keep people from driving around his gate. My question is what a barricade is allowed there to solve that purpose other than this fence?
Probably put big rocks.
I was gonna say, can he put big rocks? Can he put a landscaping wall that's not a fence?
Yeah, I just didn't know.
I mean, the fence is what's making it.
Yeah, I understand that. I just know that also, there's some places in town where we require, like a car lot, for example, but they still have to meet those requirements, but they're allowed to do, a 36-inch or a 24-inch.
Different type of bollards, but
Right.
of course that's in commercial, and we came
Right.
up with that just for.
Yeah, I understand that. That was just where my thought was going.
But he
Is
could
there
put
an
large
alternative?
rocks there, have big large rocks brought in too.
Something else, some other barrier, right, okay. So it wouldn't be an issue with some sort of landscaping feature, like rocks or,
Something.
decorative boulders or something like that. It's really just that it's a fence structure. That's the issue. Is that right?
That's my knowledge.
Okay. All right. So, the dilemma that we're facing, and I'm saying this for everyone who's watching, not just the folks in the room, but the dilemma that we're facing is this is, I think, a justifiable reasoning. I think I understand why you want it. I'm not sure that I wouldn't have reacted exactly the same way, and I completely understand it. Unfortunately, we have good reasons that come before us all the time, and we've got to be consistent. We had recently, in the last year, we had another situation where someone wanted a fence. They had a handicapped child that kept running towards the road, and they put up a fence to protect him, keep him from running out into the road. But they did the same thing. They didn't realize there was a setback. They put it inside the setback, and they came in front of us for an exception. The exception was not granted, and they had to move the fence back. Because they can meet the requirements of their safety in other ways and still meet the requirement, the ordinance requirement. And that's kind of what we're facing here, is there are other things you could do to meet the requirement other than just have this fence. Now, I completely understand, and it's already there, so that's kind of the bad part, is it's an expense that's already out. But unfortunately, I think we have to deny the fence. The gates, I have no issue with. I think just the fence back to the 40-foot marker, whatever that is, and then would encourage the owner to put in landscape boulders or some other option there to block off that drive so they can't drive in, which sounds like would be acceptable. that's the option that I'm seeing, unless you guys see a different perspective.
Mr. Chairman, I think we're all in agreement, and I'm sorry about your experience at Chad. And I did read your letter.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really sorry about that. I think the issue he's talking about is there's not anything in the ordinance that allows us to approve it for that reason, because it has to be a particular hardship based on the defined criteria. And that's what we have to vote on, is that even if we're compassionate for sure about understanding you're just trying to provide a barrier so people don't come through your yard.
Yeah, the
There's just-
hardship has to be a feature of the property. It has to be some sort of something that's beyond the control of humans, essentially. And because there's alternatives like landscape boulders or something like that, there's other options that we could use to meet the same purpose and still meet the ordinance, and that's our concern, or that's our issue. So, unless there's more, unless you guys have another
I do have one
approach.
question for Mitch. If this is a denial, obviously based on no particular hardship reason alone, how long would the applicant have to remove that fence and replace it with something else, like the rocks we're talking
We
about?
can give them ample time as long as they're working with us and they provide us with updates of timeframes and. give us
And I
some-
ask because
Yeah.
obviously for a safety reason, if you're gonna have a plan to put something else there, it'd be nice to literally do it the same day, because I know you're trying to stop a nightly event of people coming through the yard.
Yeah, I would hope that we wouldn't be in a situation where the fence has to come down before, immediately. We
No,
can work with
we'll-
them on coordinating.
We'll try to give them a month or so. I'm assuming it'd happen quicker than that, but we'll give them ample time to work with it and reach out to them, get a time frame.
Okay. All right, that's a good
Thank you,
question,
Mitch.
Phil. Anything else, anyone? All right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion, if we have one.
I'll make a motion to deny the request based on no particular hardship. Also would recommend ample time to have the situation resolved by the property owner.
All right, we have a motion to deny the setback variance for the fences specifically, and a request to work with the homeowner, which I think is reasonable. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Hernandez. All right, next item on our agenda is staff comments. Have any at this time?
I'm good.
All right. In that case, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.